Okay, so our final session for our reception this evening at the Mina Salam across the road is a man that I am going to have the delight of interviewing. He's a man of many, many achievements, from making a mark in the world of hospitality to capturing the financial services market and introducing world-class retail and F&B brands in India and the UAE, to investing in the industry, including the Great Scotland Yard Hotel in London, Waldorf Astoria, Edinburgh, the Caledonian in Scotland, the Sheraton one in Muscat, the Pullman downtown Dubai, the Tribute Portfolio Hotel in Kochi, amongst others. A visionary leader and an insightful entrepreneur and a socially responsible philanthropist. Please join me in welcoming the man behind 2014 Holdings, Mr. Adeeb Ahamed.
Pleasure.
Adeeb, what an absolute pleasure to have you with us this evening.
Pleasure's all mine,
Yeah.
and I hope I can contribute. I think so. After hearing so many people speak, I think so. What we should do is just say, great to be here, and then just walk out. I think so. Everything has been spoken out.
Well, yes and no. I think what's so interesting is having your perspective, though, as a big owner of hospitality, of hotels, and how you've transformed as an investor. So, as an owner of hotel assets, what have you learned both professionally and personally during this crisis?
I think so. This particular last 18 months have been a time like never before. As investment hubs and financial investors, we are quite geared up for recessions, but we have never geared up for a pandemic outbreak. I think so. This is. And we hope that this becomes the one and the last one in our generation, at least, and more generations to come. But I think so. The last 18 months have taught us a lot of things, especially from a hotel investor to an operator side. I think so. It's very few times that we all come into the same bucket of hardship. I think so. The last 18 months have taught us to work more cohesively together, to make sure that we work towards a common objective. Because it's always been that the tiff between an asset owner and an operator has been never-ending stories, because as asset owners, our capital investment is quite high. As operators, they seem to be working in fashion that benefits them. But at a common ground, we always look for a place where both of us mutually benefit,
So you found that collaboration much more?
Much more, I think so. Last 18 months, the ability of the operator to hear you more clearly was never than before,
Right.
And I think so. They heard us very strongly when we told them that, we need to start re-looking at different models. Because you see, disruptions was happening from different angles, with likes of Airbnb, Booking.com taking its larger share, asset owners complaining about the net return on equity not coming back, So I think so the operator had a pause time, It was always about opening one property after another, the operators never had the time in the hand to do it because, they had such a massive expansion plan in their kitty. I think so last 18 months pause was, though was not asked for, it was much needed, according to me. I think so they took a pause, they sat down.
Was that intellectual as well as financial?
Yeah, I think so it was both, I think so it was in financial in one side, but intellectual in more aspects, because they really understood the pain that we were going through, because for them, if truth to be spoken, I mean, we deal with banks and financial institutions, when we look at the whole holistic picture of developing a property. We just recently opened a property in 2019, December in London, which we closed down in March of 2020 because of the outbreak. And, then the whole restructuring process on the banks were lying out. The project was so dear to the operator that, they themselves came forward and said, is there something that we could do to help, and, how we could re-gear the projections for you and so forth. Wouldn't have happened in any other circumstances, you know. So for that, we are very thankful that, you know, the operators are looking at us in a totally different perspective.
But do you think that will, I mean, Dr. Martin Berlin spoke earlier on a
Yes.
session about transformation, and, you know, we often need a crisis.
Yes.
You know, be it a war or a virus or
True.
maybe now it's the environment coming along, in order for us to transform and collaborate like this. So do you see this carrying on, or is this a temporary?
I think so. I would also quote Winston Churchill, who said, "You never let a crisis go in vain," you know. So I think so this crisis has really made people to have that time, you know. See, the time component is, and the communication aspect was very important, you know. I think so. That was never there before because, you know, of many activities that was going around. And this past time gave us that ability to sit down, have an open conversation, you know, a heart-to-heart conversation to say that, you know, this is where we feel that we are heading towards, you know, how do we address these aspects, you know. These are the competitions that are coming out, you know. So even if you talk about Dubai, the enormous amount of non-hotel competition that is coming inside, you know, and the way that they're taking market share off from a traditional property, you know, and how do operators address that particular issue as well, you know. Yeah. I think so it was from different aspects that we had a good conversation over 18 months, and I think so that gives us the ability to strategize on what kind of assets we should invest going forward. You know?
Can you give me any examples of transformation that you've gone through in the last 18 months?
Well, I think so. See, if you look at the traditional way of management, you know, where markets are very strong like Dubai, we as operating, I mean, asset owning company, we have said that, you know, we would like the route of a hotel management contract, you know, but when you look at certain other markets which are more tougher and more aspect, we have gone through the route of franchising, you know, where we take the operator and then we keep the management under the company so that, you know, the ability to control cost becomes in a much better aspect, you know. I think so that particular element of franchise or manchise, you know, there's a concept that's happening in the operator world is gearing up pace, you know, where people understand the benefit to be under a brand umbrella, but understand that the cost that comes with an operator baggage seems to be on a higher note. So they choose to, you know, franchise the brand out, you know, take what is necessary. So it's an ability to pick and choose the boxes that you really want, whereas you control the entire operation of your business, you know. Right. I think so that is something that we have enacted in a couple of markets where we found that, you know, the ability of the management operator is not able to give us the kind of returns that we were looking at. So we had to move towards that format, you know. Right. And I think so that really helped us in a couple of markets that we operate.
Now you've invested heavily in the UK.
Yes.
And what was the reason for that?
Well, I think so it's, if you look at the different markets, so when we set up 2014 in the year 2014, hence the name 2014 Holdings, we created a $1 billion fund to invest in hotels worldwide. And our aim was to invest 50% in Europe. The reason to that is that, you know, land is of scarcity there, and we found that the asset escalation of value was much more in the European market than in other parts of the world, you know. So US was a different story. We never wanted to enter into that market. It was too far away. But looking at the geographies that we are present in, which is the MENA region and the Indian subcontinent, you know, we found that the ideal ratio that we should keep is 50% investment to Europe and the remaining into Indian subcontinent.
And now you've got into Zurich as well.
Yes, so we had the project. We were supposed to go live this year, but we have extended for another 6 months. So I think so hopefully first quarter next year, we'll have the first intercity next to the Zurich airport, where there's a new project of Circle, which is the largest interconnected project being developed at Zurich, you know. So we're going to have a project there.
Interesting from your perspective, I would imagine, seeing what governments are doing, you know, in Europe, the UK, the Middle East, India, and how that has helped or not in terms of your current situation, you know, with your assets.
Well, I think so we have a large spectrum of answer to that. Why? Because we are present from Indian subcontinent all the way up to Europe. The ability of a government to interfere at the right time is crucial for the sustenance of an industry. And I think so. We have varied example, and one of the best examples that I could give is UAE itself. The ability for them to come inside at the right point of time and assure the help to the industry, because they understand the importance of this industry. They understand the volume that this industry brings into the economy, the jobs that is being given in the economy. And similarly, we had similar support in UK as well, where government given furlough schemes. And we had certain other markets where we had no support from government or the banking fraternity. Everybody thought that this industry would not come back. And for us, we had a very strong belief on this industry. In fact, we are on the verging signing up 2 more projects, which we closed in the last 18 months. So I thought we use this opportunity to better look at more value proposition that we can find and we can sign upon. So I think so. It's an industry that I strongly believe that cannot be taken or disrupted using a VR technology or so and so forth, because we are a people of habits, or as a human nature, we love to travel. We love to experience. And that's part of every human DNA structure. Exploring. It's a key word.
Yeah.
People love to explore a different angle. They like to live the culture of each places that they visit. New thrills, new excitements, so I think so this industry is bound to a revenge comeback. I think so, you would find 2022 to be far better than, 2020, and, you would see that. I feel the industry would get back, because we are very closely tied up with the travel industry. Unless and until we find a smoother way to organize the travel industry, which is the airline sector, we would always lag behind that. And once that airline sector becomes more smoothly controlled and, they get back onto the track, we could find much better results coming to all our properties.
And there's been a lot of discussion on that during the day. Sami Sawiris sort of indicated that he thought the business travel, though, was going to take much longer to return, and numerous operators also, were suggesting that there's going to be a nice balance between this new tech and business travel. What's your view?
Well, I agree to the factor that the business travel would take longer than the leisure travel to return, but it is bound to return in the old format. Predominantly, why? Because, the routine process could be managed using technology, but, establishing new relationship, founding out new opportunities requires you to be physically present and physically explore the market. So I'm to a large area. So if you look at last 2 years, we have never had any travel exhibitions, and, we have never had any things, and people are waiting to get back into those kind of format. I think so. The best example I could give is this particular forum. In Shada, people are wanting to be back. And whoever I spoke over the last week has spoken to me and told me, "Are you going to be there at the event?" Because I am. And we would like to see those familiar faces back. So I think so. We would see the return. Business travel would be the last to come back, but I'm sure that it will head back into the same things. And of course, technology in different format would help to ease the way that we work. That's about it.
Okay. At our advisory board meeting we had a few months ago for this event, the bankers in the room said it's going to be just that much more difficult, or certainly they were saying it then, in terms of finance.
Yes.
for investors in the industry. Are you finding that? Is it more of a struggle to get support from the bankers?
No, I mean, I think so. It's about how stable an organization that it is yours. So it's about the foundation. As long as you are not overstretched, you are not over leveraged. You find bankers understanding your concept, and then you're coming back. I think so. The banks also have different agenda of making sustainable projects in the future. I think so. There's a lot of push on that one. So whenever we going for a project financing, the banks are more query to understand. Are you using the most sustainable format of constructions? What are the different methodologies? And
well,
so
moving
forth.
on to that, on sustainability, is that that must be a focus for you now, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think so. From the use of, out of plastics to now more serious sustainable in terms of development is coming through. So we 2 years ago, we had the entire team work a 2-month session on sustainable development and how projects should be developed and what materials need to be utilized and so on and so forth. I think so. As 2014, we give a very strong focus on to sustainable development. And in all of our new projects, you would see that one. So it's finding the fine balance and then using the local produce. So in one way, we also try to make sure that in economies that we or in society that we developed, we try to use as much as produce from the local market. So sourcing, sustainable sourcing is also a key subject for us.
Yeah, and we all have so much to learn on that because it's so new as well. Isn't
Absolutely, it's a trial and error. You never get it right at the first go, but it's most important that you take that leap and you
start learning, start trying.
Yeah, you go ahead with that journey. Yes.
Okay. Just moving closer to home then, in the region, what is your view on the prospects for owners in the UAE?
I think so. See, I've seen this market since the 90s, so and every time when there was a big project announced, there's always saying that this would be the last project and, you will find a bigger project coming through and a bigger project coming and a bigger project coming inside. And every time the talks is that, that's it, the bubble is here, it's about to break, But I think so we've just started scratching the tip of the iceberg at this point of time. There is enormous amount of potential for UAE as a market. More is needed here in the market, so there is a prospect of more investments, and we ourselves are looking at 3 new projects that is happening in UAE, based in Abu Dhabi, 2 in Abu Dhabi and 1 in Northern Emirates, So I think so for us, this market is a very crucial market, and we feel that, there is more that can come inside. In which format? Yes. Now that's a question that, maybe not a traditional hotel, maybe a staycation hotel, and so on and so forth of that sort, So we are looking at 3 good projects that is coming up,
Well, you talk about the supply. I was involved in doing the feasibility study on the Holiday Inn Crown Plaza on Sheikh Zayed Road. 35 years ago, probably, with Nick Van Marken, who's in the room or was in the room. Anyway, at that point, there was only the Hilton on Sheikh Zayed Road. And even then, at that point, we were going, does this make sense? Is it possible?
Yeah, true.
But I think it was a 3-year payback on that development.
Yeah. Well, I don't think so you would get a 3-year payback at this point of
No,
time.
I don't think so.
But I think so it's the USP that you have in the market. So if you look at it, a locally grown brand, Five, the way that they have come and they've placed themselves in the market is being spoken about quite evidently in the market, and then they have created a niche on this one. So it's all about the USP that you can bring into your property. People want to see something different. And if your property is able to give that differentiation, I think so there is scope for many more to come. So I think so. The development cannot be a cookie cutter model anymore. We cannot build another branded property, a Marriott or a Hyatt or things, and expect that to perform very well for you. You need, as asset owners, you need to start creating that USP from day one, and then you need to start working on that USP, and then bring this out with a good operator to manage that. So it's critical, whether it is bringing the best of the F&B into your property or whether it is to create the best of entertainment inside your property. So that's there, and of course. The human habits are also changing, the devices that they carry around, you need to be more cautious about the trends, the Gen Z and the millennials who have been coming into your property, their requirement has changed, and if you hear very closely to that, you'll understand that, what you have built in the past is no longer relevant in the future. And it's very important that we start building for the future.
Building for the future, yeah.
Yes.
Look towards, not yesterday. If there just a final question, what would it be? What would you like to transform in the industry? What would be your key thing that you would like to do differently or going forward?
I think so. For us, we started with the vision of making sure that, we go into a market and restore history, So history is something close to us. Hence, we took up the project in London, which is the Great Scotland Yard, the first building of a metropolitan police. We took it out. We kept the history very close to our heart and developed that property out. And second is to use technology to enable a lot more interest into our properties. And the third is of course think about a sustainability aspect of development. So these are the three core focus that we have always had for development of 2014 holdings, and that's what we are focusing on developing. So we don't want to create a cookie cutter model on any of our properties that we want. We want to bring out that uniqueness in each properties that we have, and then you take it up. We have no aspiration to become the largest property owner worldwide. But what we have needs to be closer to our hearts and hearts of the consumers as well.
Love it. I love it. Well, Adeeb, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And would everybody just show their appreciation to Adeeb Ahmed?
Pleasure to see you.
Thank you so much.
Jonathan.
Thank you. I hope you join us for the reception as well.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you very
fantastic.
much. Thank you.